Not too long ago, I created a review video on Blackmagic Design mini panel, which I have had for over a year, and did some test grades with it. Video link is in the description in case you want to see it. But today I'm reviewing a plugin, if not the best plugin for DaVinci Resolve from my point of view. Please, if you've gotten to this point, it would mean a lot to me if you could quickly hit the subscribe button, as I've been trying to grow this channel and pass on as much knowledge about what I do while creating YouTube videos. Dehancer contacted me asking if I was interested in reviewing the plugin. For me, Dehancer is like one of the best plugins for Resolve in regards to color grading. If you ever wish to achieve that very film-like look, I don't know where to start. This for me is like the holy grail. And instead of just throwing lots around your video files and spoiling its look. Anyways, please know that money didn't change hands. Also, this video is based on my point of view. They do not get to have any input or influence in whatever I have to say. So now that's out of the way, let's jump right in. The Dehancer plugin allows you to emulate film grain, halation, bloom, and a bunch of other great things. You know, like those pictures that you usually be taking in the 80s or 90s, and they had these very unique looks, which are different from all today's modern digital photos. This plugin helps you to achieve those looks easily and quickly. The plugin is available on Windows, Mac, and even Linux systems. It's available for Final Cut Pro, Adobe Lightroom, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and also on iOS, iPhone, and iPad. You can get the plugin from Dehancer's website, which is dehancer.com, where you can download it and get a 2-week free trial. And after that, you can buy a 3-month, 6-month, or a 1-year license, or better yet, get a lifetime access for $449. Dehancer also allows you to get separate parts of the Pro plugin for less. These are the Dehancer Lite, which features a watered-down version of the Pro plugin, or you can get the Dehancer Grain. There's also Dehancer Bloom, Breath, Halation, and Monitor, which although is free, is very powerful for monitoring your exposure inside DaVinci Resolve. Anyways, enough of the rambling. Let's see what Dehancer can do. So I have some footages on my timeline from different cameras that we will play with. But before we begin, Dehancer advises that your color management is set in 2 ways. I'll show you the one I'm using, which is the DaVinci YRGB Color Manage. If you go into your settings at the bottom right, click on Settings and click on Color Management. I have my color science set to DaVinci YRGB Color Manage. Make sure Automatic Color Manage is turned off. Color Processing Mode, you change it to HDR, DaVinci White Gamma Intermediate. Make sure Use Color Space Gamma is turned off. And I've set my output color space to Rec 709A. The reason why I'm set this to Rec 709 is because I'm working on a Mac environment. And usually I'd want my colors to be consistent from what I see on screen. So Rec 709A is what you use if you're on Mac. If you're on Windows, you probably have it to Rec 709 Scene or Rec 709 2.4 Gamma if you're working with a proper calibrated monitor. After that is done, you can click Save. And because I've already done this, I don't need to click Save. I'll just click Cancel. This is the footage we're working with first. This is a Sony. This is shot on the Sony A7 IV. Next is where in the node tree, the Dehancer plugin is to be placed. Dehancer advises the plugin is put towards the end of your node tree. That is after your adjustment, maybe your primary adjustment and all that. Also before sharpening, just like you see my node tree here, I have the noise reduction, I have my exposure, which you could call your primaries. I usually like to call it exposure. I'll have my contrast node, my white balance. If I need to do any bit of saturation, I would desaturate or saturate here. So I'll right click on this node and label it as saturation. Then I'll drop my Dehancer here, and then I've already done a bit of sharpening, which I'll show you in another video. So as you can see my node tree, I have the noise reduction node, then I have my exposure or primary node, I have my contrast node, I have my white balance, so I'll do my white balancing if I need to white balance this footage. I have my saturation node, and I have my Dehancer node, and then sharpening. This is a compound node. I've done a little bit of sharpening, which I'll show you how I do it in another video, but today we're just focusing on Dehancer. So you go into your effect panel. If it's not turned on, click Effect and type under Library, search for Dehancer. And as you can see, I'm working with Dehancer Pro 7.01. So I'll click and drag Dehancer plugin onto the Dehancer node, and automatically there's something happening with the footage. If possible, in the future, the Dehancer can make everything to default to 0, where you can go in, where I can go in and then select what I enable and select what I need to enable. So I'll turn off what is already turned on, which is by default. So I've disabled film one, I'll disable expand, I'll disable the print, I'll disable the film grain, any other thing to disable, no. So everything is open in the Dehancer plugin. I'd want us to close everything, and to close everything, hold down Alt and then click maybe here if we have film the developer. So everything is open now. I'll click once again and everything is closed. Boom. And it looks neat. So that page looks neat. Monitor is another powerful tool, very, very powerful. And I would always recommend turn on your false color to see your false color, see how your footage is doing. Is it overexposed or is it underexposed? Which is really handy. This is a very powerful tool, and this is free. You can get this free as a separate plugin, a standalone plugin from Dehancer. Turn it off for now, and I'll turn on my clipping indication to see if there's any underexposed or overexposed area. There is no clipping. There is no underexposure, so my footage will shot well. I'll turn it off for now, or let's leave it on. I'll leave it on and work with it. So for now, I'll come to the top input. This is where I'll select my source. I shot this on a Sony, so I'll change it from Rec 709, choose camera, and I'll select Sony, which is at the bottom. I'll select Sony. I can see what's happening to my footage already. This is not the A6300. This is the A Alpha 7.4. So I'll select Alpha 7.4, and let's see which one do I like. 800, 3200. There's really no difference. Probably leave it at 3200. So the first thing here is exposure. I can work my exposure. Let me switch my scope to Parade. Parade. So I can start working my exposure here. So that's a powerful thing Dehancer helps you do. You can work your files from there, but I don't want to start there. For this, I'll go to my exposure node. And before I go into working on this file, I also want to let you know that the Dehancer plugin works very well with the mini panel. That mini panel you see in this frame right here, it works perfectly with the mini panel. For the sake of this, I'm not using the mini panel. I have the mini panel behind me, just right there, as you can see. That's the mini panel. But for today's review, I'm using my mouse and keyboard so you can see what I'm doing. Looking at my scopes, I would increase overall exposure offset, expose the footage as much as I like. So color grading is what you want, how you want your files to look. But there's certain things, there's certain guides you must follow though, like using the scopes. If you want your colors to come out in maybe Rec 709 broadcast standard, there's certain guidelines, but there's no certain rule. So just wanted to put that out there. So I'll expose it to how I like. So I think I like it around there. I'll push up my gain a bit to where I like it. If I was working on my panel, this would be a little bit more precise and quicker. I'll bring down my lift a bit. So I think I like my footage where it is. I'll probably go to my contrast node and increase the contrast a tad bit around here. And maybe in my exposure, or back to my contrast, I'll adjust my pivot just to bring it up a bit. And as you can see around here, I'm having some overexposure. I'm clipping. So I'll turn up I'll go to settings, go to my Dehancer node, and which is really handy that I had a clip indication on. I'll go back to my exposure and bring down my highlight. And as you can see, I brought back some information back into the Rubik's Cube in the highs. So you can see a bit of the red, you can see a bit of the yellow and the white. So that's really handy that Dehancer told me, oh, come on, you're clipping. Okay, so now I'll go to my vector scope. Is my image balanced? I'm okay with it. I'll go to the next thing, which is the film developer. Make sure you enable. So if you click here, you can enable whatever you're working in with. Do I need to add some more contrast? Let me go to the parade. Do I need to add some more contrast? You can see what it's doing to my wave, to my scopes. So this is the same thing like contrast and pivot. So for now, I'll not touch that. I'll reset all that and then boost up my saturation by increasing the color boost. And you see that happen in the vector scope. So if as I boost up my color, you can see what's happening in the vector scope. As you can see, the blue is way out of order. And this is where I'd come to my saturation node or desaturation, going to my curves and going to hue versus saturation. I believe is the blue here. So I'll select that and drag it down. My blues are safe. I'll go back to Dehancer. I'll go to the next thing, which is film. This is where everything begins to get interesting. So now that that is done, there's only one company that produces color film today, and that is Kodak. They make 4 types of negative films named Kodak Vision. Fujifilm also used to make color movie films, but were discontinued in 2013. At the moment, Dehancer perhaps is the only software product that has all 4 modern color negative profiles. These are the Kodak Vision 50D, 200T, 250D, and 500T. The 50D is optimized for outdoor or daylight exterior shots. The 200T for daylight, interior, or window light, where tungsten is a color. Sometimes it's used in sunset or sunrise exterior shots, while the 250D is when you shoot in a well-lit studio, usually in high contrast scenes, and the 500T is for limited lighting, but usually you can use them where it fits your shot. So we are in the film section, and under profile, you see what I just mentioned. You have the Kodak Vision 3 200T, you have the Kodak Vision 3 250D, and 50D. So if I click the 50D is for exterior shots, remember, this is an indoor shot. I have to enable it for it to be active. Doesn't really look good. Let's go to 200T. So 200T is for tungsten, not so nice. 250D is for interior, high contrast, daylight. So you're trying to mimic daylight, where the D stands for daylight and the T for tungsten. And you can see already what's happening to my footage. This is before, this is after. This is before, this is after. This is before, this is after. Right now, you can see it's taking my footage out of color balance. Would have to fix that. I can go back to I can go here to my white balance and go into offset and try to balance it as I want. I'll go to expand the same thing for my black and white point. Let's see what it does. I will enable it and let's see. So I can further push up my brightest points. And as you can see, I'm overexposing at the bright points of this footage. So I'll reset that. I don't need any more expansion in my white point. Let me see my black point. Do I need to? No, I don't want that. I like how contrasty it is. So I'll disable it because I didn't do anything there. I didn't need anything from it. And the print is where the source is. There are 4 print film profiles in Dehancer. The linear, if you see there's the linear, there's the Cineon film log, there's a Kodak 2383, there's the Kodak Endura glossy paper, There's also the Fujifilm 3513 print film. The linear profile doesn't really do anything. If you're expecting to have a lot applied to your shot, then you may use a Xenon film log profile. So usually you would have another node after the Dehancer node and can then apply your lot to the print. I'll just show you here. So if I click on the Xenon film log, first of all, I have to enable it. See what it does to my shot. Let me pull up the Dehancer node up here and add a node, a serial node just after the Dehancer. Let me delete this and then reconnect this. So if I wanted to add a lot after the Dehancer, I'll use a Xenon film log where I can go into my lot, cinematic log, pick one of these, apply it there. And that's the nice thing about having this, the Xenon film log in the Dehancer. This is without Xenon film log applied and just this lot applied to this node. This is enabled. So if I wanted to apply a lot after the Dehancer node, I would use a Xenon film log to apply the lot, and I can go ahead to enable my grain. So for now, I don't need to do that. I'll delete this. I'll bring this back. I'll clean up my node graph, turn off the lot page. The next print film profile is the ever popular Kodak 2383, and lastly the Kodak Endura glossy paper profile. But we'll go with the Kodak 2383 print film. So we'll go to Kodak 2383 print film, select it. Do I like this? Let me also enable the analog range limiter. I could tone down the effect of contrast. What I would do is select the Fujifilm. I like the way the Fujifilm does work. Let me see the Kodak 2383 again. I think I'll go with the Fujifilm. And then the target white is where I can adjust my white balance. So I'll go to my vector scope. And let's see what it's doing. Towards the left will be 5500. Towards the right will be 6500. Let me reset that. I think I like it around there. This is the color density. This is what it does to the file. Maybe I like it around there. What I want to do is go back to my exposure node and tone down my highlight. So I'll go to parade, probably bring down my gain. So I'm not losing information at the top part of this Rubik's Cube. Bring down my gain and push up my gamma a bit. Bring down my gain a bit. I think I like it where it's sitting. So I'll go back to the Dehancer. I like this. So I'll go to color head. So color head is where you can do some more color separation. We wanted some more blue against the yellow. Let me go to my vector scope, add some blues. Always remember to enable it. I'll reset, add some blues in the blues and some reds, or I'll pull it towards the cyan. No. For my skin tone, I'll go towards the reds a bit and go against my magenta. So I'll pull towards green. Just kind of add some more color separation to the file. So I like where it is. The shadows, midtones, and highlights, I don't want to touch that. I could reduce the overall impact by adjusting it here. So I like how my frame is looking. Next is grain. First of all, enable it to see what it's doing to the footage. I think it's so much on the footage right now. I'll set to custom so I can manually adjust the impact it's having on my footage. So you can adjust the size of the grain to make it bigger or smaller. I'll reduce it here. Let me reset. I'll reduce it to 10, around 10. And the amount of grain, I'll bring it down a bit. I don't like it when it's too much. So I believe grain should just be subtle. It shouldn't be too much on your file. It should just be there, almost not noticeable, so to say. So you can reduce or increase the resolution of your grain. I think around there is okay. In the shadows, I might pump it up a tiny bit and reduce it a bit in the highlight. Film type could be negative, to what that does to the file, or positive. So next is halation. So the halation effect occurs when the bright areas of an image produces a red-orange halo near the contrasting edges or boundaries of an overexposed areas in your footage. They could produce a red glare in the midtones. Usually, halation is produced around bright light sources. If I open up the halation and click Enable and switch to Max mode, you probably don't see anything now. But if I switch to Custom, which is the manual setting, and push on my local diffusion, you begin to see where it's occurring in my footage. This is the global diffusion. I'll push it up a bit just so you can see and amplify, so you can see more of it. So you can see that the bright areas, boundaries in my image are around the top part of this Rubik's Cube. That's where light is hitting. So it's producing a red, orangey look. So usually seen in films, maybe the edges of cars where sunlight is hitting the cars, the top part of the cars. So that's where you see halation effect occur. I'll probably just bring it down a bit. Let me turn on the max mode and limit it a tiny bit and turn off the max mode. So you can see just around the boundaries of the Rubik's Cube, just around there. So it's producing that red orangey effect. So now that we finished with halation, next up is bloom. I'll open up the bloom section and click enable, and you can see what it's doing to the footage. But what is bloom? The bloom effect is most prominent when shooting with vintage lenses, as well as special lenses or with special optical filters like the Pro Mist. So I have a Pro Mist filter here, which is the Pro Mist, Black Pro Mist 1/4. This is from Tiffin. You can see what's happening around my frame. So the bloom effect is caused by imperfections in optical design. It is most noticed in old lenses with poorly coated glass. So I've enabled the bloom effect here, and I'll switch to max mode and then switch to custom, and I'll just over exaggerate. I'll bring down my source limiter and then increase the diffusion. I'll reduce my save light so you can see where in my frame it's occurring. So I can control that by working on my highlights, increasing or reducing. My source limiter can control how much is coming out of it. I can amplify it or reduce it. So I'll over exaggerate it by amplifying it and switching on the max mode so you can see how overbloomed the Rubik's Cube is, where the light is really hitting. So let's reduce it a bit and reduce the highlight. So this is without bloom, this is with bloom. And we can further reduce the effect and save the light. And we can walk down the saturation or leave it as it is. So this is before, this is after. We can further reduce the impact it's having on the footage. So before, after. Very nice. And as you can see, there's no clipping. If I switch my false color on, we're still not clipped, which is very nice. So I still have my clip indication on. And next is film damage. Before we go into film damage, let's go to film breath. I'll enable it. So the film breath effect is noticeable as an accidental change in exposure, contrast, and color from frame to frame as the film moves. You can simulate film breath by enabling it. But I don't need that for this file because this is very short. I think 2 or 5 seconds. So it wouldn't really be evident in this file. So I will disable it. So now that we've talked about film blur, let's talk about gate weave. The gate weave effect is another nice effect from Dehancer. So it usually occurs when there are a few shifts as the film moves through the capture device. High-end cameras, projectors, and scanners make it possible to position and stabilize the film quite accurately as it moves. If I enable it, you can see the changes that's happened. There's kind of zoom in or a shift in the frame. So that's gate weave. I don't need it for this footage that we're working in. One that captures my eyes is film damage. I will enable it here. And what is film damage? The film damage is usually from dust particles, hair, scratches, stains, and much more that happen to the film strip over time. From the time of shooting, processing, storing, duplicating, displaying, and all. And I must say that I am very much impressed with how the Dehancer simulates this effect. I have it enabled. Already you can see some particles on my frame. So we'll go to custom, and then as I increase the dust amount, you can see what's happening to my frame or to my footage. The dust is coming up more. And if I click play, you can see the dust coming up on screen, which is really nice. I can increase the scale. I could reduce the scale so there's more of the dust particles in frame. I could change the size balance if I wanted. I could increase the hair amount, the longer ones in the frame, increase the scale. If I wanted size balance, white, black, I can disable or enable the hairs. You can see the hair here. If I click to turn it off, it disappears. Same with the dust. I can disable the dust or enable the dust. Scratches, I can disable the scratches or enable them. I can. So that's really nice. This just takes my breath away. So imagine trying to simulate a scene shot probably in the 70s. So you're in the future. I want to go back in time. So this can easily give you that effect or simulate that effect. All you have to do is just set the parameters that you wish, and you achieve it so easily. And another very powerful tool I like in the Dehancer plugin is the vignette. Usually, I would have to use a power window, a circular window, or adjust it to how I want it, and then it usually would not really be smooth. But I like how the vignette tool in Dehancer works. So I enable it here, and you can already see around the edges of my frame what it's doing. This is before, this is after. What I usually like to do is turn down the feather. So I'll turn down my feather to around 0, and I can see where in the frame it's affecting. And then I can adjust my aspect ratio and then size if I want. If I wanted, I could have it like that. Only thing I don't like about the vignetting in the hand size that I have to manually put in the numbers to adjust it on the X or Y axis. I'll leave it as 0 because it's perfectly, my focus is perfectly in the center, and then I would feather it out and turn down my exposure and then some more feathering. I love this. So this is before vignetting, this is after vignetting. So my focus is right in the center where the Rubik's Cube is. So I can go back to my monitoring tool and turn on my false color. This is what the vignetting is doing with false color turn on. So nice. Um, so that's it. And if I wanted to export this as a lot, all I'd have to do is go into the lot generator and select normal 33, 33, 33, and export lot. I can also reduce the total impact of what I've done on my footage by just reducing it this way. I can go to my saturation node and maybe bump up the saturation if I wanted, or go into the Dehancer, go to the top, where I have the color boost, and then add some more colors. So I like it as it looks. Looks nice. This footage of this toy car, let me play it. I shot this with my slider, my son's toy car, shot on my iPhone 14 Pro last year. And this is an opportunity to test footage to see what you can do. I know this shot on an Apple iPhone, so I'll go into the source and select choose camera, and automatically it's picked up that as an Apple iPhone. It's not ProRes log, so I'll leave the format off. If I have selected Apple log, it really makes no difference. So I'll deselect that. I can see from a vector from my scopes that my red is overshooting its boundaries. I'll go into my hue versus hue, make sure I'm in my SAT. I'll click on red and I'll bring down my red. And because it seems to be affecting my skin tone color, so I'll push that up. So I'll kind of control it like that. All right. Probably go to my hue versus luminance, click on my red, maybe push on my luminance a bit. Go back to my hue versus sat and bring down my red. So I think I like it where it is. I'll go back to the Dehancer. And then what film profile do I use? Let's see. First of all, enable it. I don't like what this is doing. Let's try something else. Portrait 160, no. Kodak Color Plus 200, no. That's black and white. Extra chrome. Maybe we can work with this extra chrome, and let me see how my parade. So everything looks overexposed. I'll go to my exposure node, bring down my exposure, bring down my gain, bump up my gamma, bring down my gain, bump up my gamma. What I can do is bump up my shadows, bring down my highlights, bump up my gamma. So I'm just working my footages to how I like it. Shadows up. I think it's fine here. So I'll reduce my contrast in my contrast node just to crush everything. It's now looking good. I like where it is. And then adjust my pivot. Just again, adjust my pivot. Go back to my exposure. Improve my gamma. And I think I like how it's looking now. Let me see if my white balance is okay. My white balance seems to be okay, but I'll just go to my white balance node and push it up towards the res a tad bit. All right, so now that is done, I'll go to my Dehancer node, and in my film compression, I don't need to do any compression, so I'll leave that. Expand. Let's see what I'll enable it. Let's see what the black points could do. A bit of contrast, which I like. I like it where it is. Let's see enable my film print section. Kodak film print. Do I like that? Fujifilm. I think for this one I like the Kodak film 2383 film print. I'll go back up a bit, and under film developer, I'll enable it and add a bit of color saturation. I like it there. Boost it up a bit. Next, I'll go into my film grain color head. I don't need to touch the color head, I'll leave it as it is, enable my film grain, and see what it's doing to my, it's adding a bit of color. So I'll go to my custom and reduce the impact by reducing the size, the amount, the resolution, and the highlights. Probably turn down the midtones a tad bit. So this is how I'd want it. This is before, this is after. Like I said, the grain shouldn't be too much. It should just be subtle. Halation, do I want halation? So I don't need halation for this shot, so I'll move on from halation to bloom. I don't need bloom for this shot. Film damage, I don't need film. Yeah, I'll probably put in some film damage and custom increase the amount. You can see a bit there. Film birth, I don't need film birth. Gate weave, I don't need to enable that. I'd want to enable the vignetting. There, I'll reduce my feathering, see where it's affecting. Probably go to negative 0.01 or yeah, negative 0.0, negative 0.1, a bit to the left, and increase my feathering. I'll probably leave the center at 0 on the x-axis, and then turn down my exposure and improve my feathering. So I can go back to my exposure, primary, and then increase my exposure a tad bit. Go back to the Dehancer, bring down my exposure, my vignetting. It just looks so nice. Looks so nice. I'll go to my monitor. Am I clipping? Nope. So that shows how easily you can get your film look or achieve your film look using the Dehancer. I didn't have to know so much. Everything is there. I just toy it around, and I can further turn down the overall impact by bringing it down. Maybe it was too much, and then go back to my contrast and pumping in some more contrast if I wanted in my shot and adjusting my pivot. So it's depending on your taste and what you want. This is how it was shot on the iPhone 14 Pro, and this is what we have achieved with the Dehancer Pro. How easy could it be? I shot this film 2 years ago. It took me about 3 weeks to grade. If I had the Dehancer, I probably would have graded this in about a week and a half. This is shot on my iPhone 14 Pro by my wife. My son and I walking down in the woods. I could just push up, look at my scopes here, push up the exposure, reduce the contrast. If I wanted to, this is before the answer, this is after the answer. Such a powerful plugin. This is the perfect time to talk about the iOS version of the Dehancer for iPad and the iPhone. I have my 12.9-inch iPad Pro with M1 right here in my hand, and I'll just play with the Dehancer and show you what you can do. To have the Dehancer open, I have 3 files selected. I'll select the same footage I shot on my iPhone 14 Pro. So this is how it looks, and I can easily play my footage. I'll pause it here. So this is my source here is Apple, but not Apple log. So this is not the Apple log file, but this is shot on the iPhone. So I'll just leave it at Rec 709 since I don't have a preset that I shot this on. I'll click at the top here to show my scope. I can increase my exposure or reduce. And the thing I like about the app version is that as I'm working on my footage, it's showing if I'm overexposing or underexposing. So it's showing that I'm clipping, so I'll bring it down a bit. So now I've set my source, I'll go into films and possibly select the Fuji Color Superior 1600, or better yet, leave it as go to Kodak. Do I like the Kodak? I like the Kodak Aero Color 4. So I'll select the Kodak Aero Color 4. That'll be 8 for films. All right, I'll go into developer and you can see what it's doing. If I want to turn off what I've already done to see before and after, I'll just click back on where I was, and then it turns off. So you can see the little blue icons at the top. I can click to turn it off, click to re-enable it. So I've enabled my developer. You can see what I've done. I can double click if I make an adjustment to like my contrast boost. I can double click to reset. I can double click my gamma correction to reset. Double click my color boost to reset. So for this, I'm going to increase my color boost and a bit of contrast. Increase the contrast. You can see I'm clipping in my shadows. So I use the gamma correction to pull out of the shadows, but that's okay. I like it as it is. I can preview my files. You can see there was some clipping there. I'll go into my expand. So it's clipping my shadows. In my black point, I would reduce it a tad bit just to remove the underexposed side. My white point, I push it there. Go to print where it begins to get interesting, and already you can see what the Fujifilm 3513 is doing. I can bring down my exposure or change it to Kodak 2383. Reset what I did, reset my exposure, reset my tonal contrast, reset my analog range limiter, so I can see what's happening when I enable my analog range limiter, and I can begin to work on my color density to make it more denser, my tonal contrast, and I like what it's doing to my footage. Can go to my color head. I don't really want to do anything here, so I'll turn that off. I'll go to my film grain and reset everything and reduce the amount, reduce the size, reduce the amount again, reduce the resolution a bit. I think I'm happy where it is. Remember, film grain should just be subtle and not over amplified. I'll go to my halation. I don't really need the halation, so I'll turn that off. I'll go to bloom. Maybe I want to add a bit of bloom or amplify it a bit, or go to custom. You can see around the horn, there's a bit of bloom happening. I'll go to my vignetting, which I really like. I'll reset exposure, feathering, aspect ratio. I'll turn down my feathering to see where it's happening in my shot. I'll bring down the exposure and then feather it some more. I can also adjust my aspect ratio. Very nice. Can push up my exposure a bit and feather it some more so it's not really noticeable. This is before, this is after with vignetting. I don't need the film breath, I don't need the gate wave. But then again, I can preview what I've done, which will take up a lot. It might be slow. I'll just press play. So for now, I notice there is no film damage. Hopefully in the near future. So that's the power of the Dehancer on your iPad or iPhone. Another thing I like about the iPad version is that you can work in landscape mode and also in portrait mode. As you can see, this is portrait mode. Everything arranges itself. You can adjust it up and down in case you need more space at the bottom. Everything works so well, so well. The Dehancer have put a lot into building this app. So in summary, this is a great and all-round plugin to have. Dehancer has taken its time to provide in-depth information on how to use the plugin on their website, which I think is so resourceful. Going through the information on the website really did help me with understanding certain terms and technicalities. And the plugin is so easy to use. I'm so super impressed that Dehancer keeps updating the plugin. You are even able to process the latest Apple ProRes log profile, so you are sure to be up to date with new camera profiles. I'm hopeful that in the near future, Dehancer release a Resolve plugin version for DaVinci Resolve for iPad, as I did mostly on my iPad before color grading on my desktop when I'm home, and also an Android version for Android users. I would definitely recommend this plugin to anyone trying to achieve that film look without so much stress. And don't forget to use my code, which would give you a 10% discount to any of your plugins. The code is YourFilmmaker and it's in the description section below. Once again, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.